From deserts that resemble the surface of Mars to glaciers that have endured since long before human civilization, the United States is home to landscapes that almost defy belief. Across this vast nation, every horizon tells a different story, shaped by millions of years of natural forces and centuries of history. Towering mountain ranges, ancient forests, rugged coastlines, and world-famous landmarks come together to create a country unlike any other. Some of these places have become global icons, while others remain hidden gems waiting to reveal their remarkable stories. Today, we're setting out on an unforgettable journey to explore the extraordinary places that make the United States one of the most diverse and awe-inspiring countries on Earth. From above, the road into Grand Canyon country looks like a thin thread pulled through miles of pine and red earth. Nothing about that drive really prepares you for the edge. This canyon runs 277 miles long, cut by the Colorado River over roughly 5 to 6 million years. At its widest, it stretches 18 miles across, and in places, the drop from rim to river passes 6,000 feet. Down at Horseshoe Bend, the same river bends a full 270 degrees around 1,000 feet of sandstone. Locals here just call it the canyon's eastern edge. Once you're standing at the rim, there's honestly not much to do but take it in, snap a few photos, and get back in the car. And somehow that's enough. Bring water. This country is dry almost all year, and one afternoon barely covers what's here. Plan for a couple of days if you can. A rock squirrel tucks into the shade of a ledge, waiting out the heat the same way it has for generations. Elk wander right along the south rim too, brought back here over a century ago, so keep an eye out. They're everywhere. Come winter, snow lines the roads and the air turns sharp above 7,000 feet, so bring a hat and something warm. If the lines are long at the main gate, the park itself points travelers toward the quieter east entrance instead. Before we head to the next spot, here's a fun question. Which American dessert is often called as American as Comment your answer. This weathered wooden sign, worn by wind and time, has marked the entrance to the world's first national park since Congress created it back in 1872. By the time summer rolls around, nearly 1 million visitors pass through these gates in a single month, drawn by the promise of geysers, canyons, and steaming ground. But most of them experience all of it through a windshield, following the same loop road without ever stepping off pavement. Get out on foot, though, and something changes fast. The crowds thin out, the noise fades, and the landscape starts to feel like it belongs to you alone. Underneath all this green, quiet-looking country sits a supervolcano, its heat still seeping up through cracked, mineral-crusted ground that never quite cools down. The caldera itself stretches roughly 53 by 28 miles, though its walls rise barely 1,600 feet above the surrounding plateau, low enough that you could walk right past the rim without ever realizing what you were standing on. More than 500 geysers push their way up through this restless ground, which works out to over half of every geyser known to exist anywhere on the planet. Old Faithful is the most famous of them all, rising out of the upper geyser basin in thick bursts of steam that climb straight up against an open sky. Not far from there, Grand Prismatic Spring spreads out wider than a football field, its rings of deep orange, green, and blue making it the largest hot spring anywhere in the country. Follow the river as it winds north, and it eventually drops 308 feet over lower falls, thundering down into a canyon carved through rock-stained yellow and rust by centuries of heat and mineral runoff. That same canyon runs for nearly 20 miles and plunges more than 1,000 feet straight down in places, deep enough to swallow entire buildings without a trace. South of all that, Yellowstone Lake spreads out at almost 7,730 feet above sea level, the largest high-elevation lake of its kind in North America, sitting calm and still on top of everything still churning beneath it. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing destinations and unforgettable journeys. Honolulu wears two faces at once, glass towers rising straight out of a crescent of white sand, ocean on one side, green ridges on the other. The name itself means sheltered harbor, a title given to this stretch of coast long before the first hotel ever went up. Waikiki, its most famous shoreline, means spouting water, a nod to the springs that once fed the wetlands here. Most of that water is gone now, redirected through the Alawai Canal that lines the district's inland edge. Built between 1921 and 1928, the mile-and-a-half channel drained the old taro fields and rice paddies that used to sit where the hotels now stand. Even the beach isn't entirely original. Its sand has been trucked and shipped in for decades just to hold the shoreline in place. Above it all stands Diamond Head, a 762-foot volcanic cone Hawaiians call Leahi, named for the shape of a tuna's dorsal fin. It formed roughly 300,000 years ago in one violent burst of steam, when rising magma met seawater and blew ash across the coast. Inland, the jagged, cloud-wrapped ridges of the Ko'olau Range close the whole scene in. The city sits wedged, permanently, between mountain and tide. Down at the harbor, waters that once sheltered outrigger canoes now hold yachts and fishing fleets side by side. Nobody comes here to rush. Locals call it Hawaiian time, and the place asks you to slow down, hang loose, and just breathe. Wander a farmer's market for the tropical fruit, or order the local catch as poke or sashimi. Either way, it's some of the freshest fish you'll find anywhere. We worked really hard to make these videos, and of course, your support is a huge motivation. If you love us, you can scan the QR code here to buy us a cup of coffee. Step inside, and the desert disappears. What's left is stone that moves like water, folding into itself in shades of red, orange, and violet. This is Antelope Canyon on Navajo land just outside Page, Arizona. The Navajo call it Se Bigani Lini, the place where water runs through. And that's exactly how it was made. Flash floods carved these walls out of Navajo sandstone, a rock that's been sitting here since the Jurassic period, some 190 million years. The canyon splits into two faces, Upper Antelope, known as the Crack, and Lower Antelope, the Corkscrew, twisting deeper below the surface. Even with walls rising 120 feet overhead, you never have to climb. The whole path stays at ground level. No road leads here on its own. The only way in is with a Navajo guide, because this ground is considered sacred. At midday, especially in the upper canyon, shafts of light drop straight down through the narrow openings above. The heat can be brutal, and the sandy floor is uneven underfoot, so sturdy shoes and water matter more than people expect. From March through October, when those light beams are at their best, the canyon fills fast, so book 6 months out. Every flood since has reshaped it slightly, so no two visits ever look quite the same. I'm curious, what time is it where you're watching from? And which country are you joining me from today? Rock that took 230 million years to layer itself, then 13 million more just to get pushed up into the light. That's Zion before anyone ever walked into it. The North Fork of the Virgin River did the real work here, cutting a canyon 15 miles long and up to 3,000 feet deep through solid stone. Some of that stone was once a desert of wind-blown sand dunes, and you can still read the old wind patterns frozen into the swirled, striped rock. The elevation swings from under 4,000 feet at the river to nearly 8,700 feet at the high points, so the same park holds cactus and cottonwood at the bottom and forest at the top. Snow dusts the peaks in winter, though the desert floor rarely sees more than 10 inches of rain in a year. It was Mukuntuwape National Monument first, in 1909, renamed Zion, and made a national park in 1919. The road through it, the Zion-Mount Carmel Highway, still threads a narrow tunnel through the cliffs on its way toward Bryce Canyon and the Grand Canyon. This place moves slowly. The people who come to see it do not. Nearly 5 million visitors made this the second most visited national park in the country last year. To keep the canyon from choking on its own popularity, cars have been banned from the scenic drive since 2000, replaced by a free shuttle that's the only way in during the busy months. Parking fills before mid-morning most days, so the bus, slow as it is, has become the only way anyone gets to see what took 230 million years to build. "6 million acres of interior Alaska, and only one road runs through any of it. From above, the taiga rolls out unbroken, spruce and river bar and open ground, no clear edge to where it ends. Somewhere past that ridgeline stands Denali itself, 20,310 feet, the highest point in North America. The name comes from Koyukon, and it simply means the tall one. People were calling it that long before anyone measured it. From its own base, it climbs about 18,000 feet, more vertical rise than Everest gets from its base camp. Below it, the Nenana River runs 150 miles north, braiding gray and blue across gravel bars as it drops out of the mountains. Same water, same range, but the color shifts with the season, green giving way to rust and gold across the tundra. Where the river bends near the park entrance, a small cluster of red-roofed lodges sits barely a mile from where the wilderness officially begins. That's about as far in as most people ever get. A rail line and a gravel road cross the canyon on trestles cut into the hillside, thin and temporary looking against the scale around them. Even the road doesn't hold. Landslides have closed stretches of it for years now, and full access isn't expected again until 2027. Past that point, it's just forest, tundra, and glacier, running out to the horizon, mostly indifferent to the road trying to cross it. New York doesn't ease you in. From above, block after block of rooftops and water towers stretches out until the skyline finally takes over. At dusk, two of the city's oldest icons still hold their own. The Empire State Building's spire glowing gold, and just past it, the Chrysler Building's steel crown catching the last light. Further downtown, the skyline changes character completely. One World Trade Center rises to 1,776 feet, a height chosen to echo the year of American independence. Grand Central Terminal, opened in 1913, is still the largest train station on Earth by number of platforms, and its Beaux-Arts Hall makes something as routine as catching a train feel like an occasion. A few blocks north, the energy shifts entirely. Times Square is loud, packed, covered in screens, and somehow still lives up to every bit of its reputation as one of the most iconic corners of the city. On the Hudson, New York found room for something newer. Little Island, a 2.4-acre park raised on 132 concrete tulip pillars, opened in 2021 on the bones of an old shipping pier. If there's one thing to do above everything else here, it's walking through Central Park, 843 acres, that Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux carved out of swamp and rock more than a century and a half ago. It's full of locals and visitors sharing the same patch of green in the middle of the skyscrapers, everyone out enjoying the weather at once. Every season changes its mood, but fall is when people say it looks best, right as the leaves start turning along paths like these. The park's Bow Bridge and the twin towers of the San Remo turn into a single postcard in autumn, red and gold pressed right up against the skyline. Out in the harbor, Lady Liberty has kept watch since 1886, her torch sitting 305 feet above the water. A bucket list stop that's worth booking online months ahead, since every ticket, even the basic one, comes with entry to the pedestal level and the small museum at its base. Every angle of New York shows a different city, and somehow all of them are true at once. Rocky Mountain National Park doesn't ease you into the mountains, it hands them to you at the gate. One sign, one road, and within minutes the flatland is gone, replaced by pine ridgelines stacked against the sky. This park was set aside in 1915, the 10th in the country, protecting 415 square miles, where the elevation runs from around 7,600 feet to over 14,000 at the summit of Long's Peak. Trail Ridge Road carries you through nearly all of it, the highest continuous paved road in the U.S., cresting above 12,000 feet, with 11 miles running clean above the tree line. Down there it's pine forest and river bottom. Up here it's just rock, wind, and snowfields that don't fully melt some years. Moose move through the willows like they own the silence, unhurried, unbothered by weather that can turn in an hour. Nearly a third of the park sits above the trees entirely, alpine tundra where nothing grows tall enough to hide in. If you're heading for Bear Lake, know this first. A timed entry ticket is required, and bookings open the evening before at 7 p.m. Sharp. The Bear Lake Trail up to Emerald Lake is one of the park's most rewarding walks, though it draws a crowd. Mornings are the move before the afternoon storms roll in. Camp at Stillwater and you'll want sun protection, but the showers and restrooms make it easy. Ask for a site nearer the lake if you can. Moraine Park's campsites sit closer together, tucked into quieter, greener ground. Whichever way you come in, the mountains don't perform for you. They were doing this long before the road. and they'll keep doing it after. Out past the last stretch of open desert, the final quiet mile before Las Vegas takes over the sky. By dusk, the mountains fade to silhouette and the valley below starts to glow, one street at a time. By night, the Strip is a different country. Just over 4 miles of towers, marquees, and light, packed so tight the desert around it disappears completely. Early morning, before the crowds arrive, is the best time to learn the tables. Most casinos run free lessons then, quick rundowns of the rules, so you're not the one holding up a packed table after dark. Break in comfortable shoes before you come, because Vegas gets walked more than it gets driven, block after block of casino floor and boulevard sidewalk. Keep small bills on hand too. Tipping here isn't optional, it's closer to the local currency. The Bellagio's fountains rise from an 8.5-acre lake right in front of the hotel. Jets timed to music and capable of shooting up to 460 feet into the desert air. A few blocks down, Caesar's Palace keeps its own version of Rome alive. Marble columns, fountains, and a statue standing watch over the Strip. Down at Fremont Street, the old heart of downtown, a canopy of LED screens stretches some 1,375 feet overhead, billed as the largest video screen in the world. At the south end of it all, the Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas sign has stood since 1959, just 25 feet tall, yet somehow bigger than everything around it. From above, the airport sits right at the edge of the neon, runways just minutes from the casino floor. Don't try to see all of it in one trip. Leave room to wander, because the Strip rewards the people who let themselves get a little lost in it. If you've visited this place before, comment 1. If you haven't, comment 2. Los Angeles doesn't announce itself with one skyline. It keeps rewriting itself, block by block. Downtown rises first, glass towers stacked against the mountains, fading into a haze that runs all the way to the ocean. At 1,100 feet, the Wilshire Grand Center stands taller than any other building west of the Mississippi River. Below it, Los Angeles City Hall has anchored downtown since 1928, its tower modeled after one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. A short walk away, fountains and open lawns break up the concrete, one of the few breathing spaces in a downtown built mostly of glass and steel. North of there, old theater marquees and market storefronts still line the streets, a layer of the city's older history sitting under the new towers. Follow the freeways out and you hit the 4-level interchange, the world's first stack interchange, carrying traffic between the Hollywood, Harbor, Pasadena, and Santa Ana freeways since 1953. On Vine Street, the Capitol Records building curves upward in 13 stories, built in 1956 as the world's first circular office building. Its shape was never meant to be literal, but everyone still calls it a stack of records with a needle pointed at the sky. Above it all, on Mount Lee, the Hollywood sign spells out the neighborhood's name in 45-foot letters, largely unchanged since it first went up in 1923. West of downtown, the city finally runs out of room and meets the Pacific, where beach towns line the coast in a long stretch of sand and rooftops. If you're staying nearby, hotels in Glendale, Burbank, or North Hollywood tend to be cheaper and more convenient, and flying into Hollywood Burbank Airport instead of LAX makes getting into the city a lot easier. This information was compiled from multiple sources. If there are any inaccuracies, please share your suggestions in the comments below. From above, San Francisco looks like it barely has room to breathe. Towers packed shoulder to shoulder, the tallest ones reaching straight up into the fog. This is a city built on hills, 47 of them, packed into just 47.3 square miles, which makes it the second hilliest city in the world after La Paz, Bolivia. Out in the bay sits Alcatraz, ringed by currents so cold and strong that during its 29 years as a federal prison, from 1934 to 1963, not one inmate ever escaped and survived. To the north, the Golden Gate Bridge holds its color even at dusk. International orange, chosen specifically to cut through the fog. It opened in 1937, stretching nearly 2 miles across the strait, its towers rising 746 feet above the water, tall enough to hold the record for the world's tallest suspension bridge for over 60 years. Fisherman's Wharf sits at the edge of it all, its old sign and vintage streetcars marking one end of downtown's most walkable stretch. But San Francisco is compact enough to see on foot and steep enough that walking everywhere just isn't realistic. That's what the cable cars are for, the last manually operated system of its kind anywhere in the world, still gripping the same cables it has since 1873. A 1, 3, or 7-day visitor pass sold at the airport or any Walgreens opens up the whole network: buses, streetcars, and the cable cars themselves. Down at the waterfront, the ferry building's clock tower still marks the line between city and water, piers stretching out where cargo once queued. Across the bay, Marin's Hills fade into fog and pine, a quiet counterpoint to the density packed onto this side of the water. By evening, the skyline settles into silhouette, and the bridge everyone came for is still the last thing lit. Every building in this city was built to remind you that power here belongs to no single person. The Capitol Dome looks like carved stone, but it's actually 9 million pounds of cast iron, painted to match the marble beneath it. Nearly 300 feet above the plaza, the bronze Statue of Freedom faces east, watching over a government designed to never bow to one ruler. Down Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House has sheltered every president since John Adams moved in back in 1800. Washington himself picked the site, but never spent a night there. It survived fire, war, and 2 centuries of history behind that same iron fence. Nearby, the Washington Monument rises 555 feet. For 5 years in the 1880s, it was the tallest structure on Earth. Look closely and you can see a faint line partway up where the marble changes shade. Construction stalled for 2 decades over money and a civil war, and when it resumed, the quarry had run out of matching stone. Across the mall, the Supreme Court's Marble Palace didn't even exist until 1935. Before that, the justices met inside the Capitol itself. The Lincoln Memorial carries 36 columns, one for every state in the Union the day Lincoln died. Across the Potomac, the Pentagon covers so much ground that walking between its 2 farthest points still takes about 7 minutes. And on the hills above the river, more than 400,000 people rest at Arlington, where a soldier stands guard over the unknown soldier in every kind of weather, day and night, without exception. If you're planning to see any of this up close, book Capitol and White House tours 2 to 3 months ahead and carry ID to match your reservation. Chicago doesn't ease you in. It puts the whole skyline right at the water's edge. By day, it's glass and stone stacked block after block. By night, it turns into a wall of light reflected across Lake Michigan. Willis Tower rises above all of it at 1,451 feet, 108 floors that made it the tallest building on Earth until 1998. Down at street level, the Chicago River cuts straight through downtown, bridges lifting, buildings leaning right over the water. That river didn't always flow this way. In 1900, engineers reversed its current entirely, sending the water away from Lake Michigan instead of into it, one of the boldest public works projects in American history. In Millennium Park, Cloud Gate sits like a drop of mercury frozen mid-fall, 110 tons of polished steel pieced together from 168 plates with no visible seams. Nearby, Buckingham Fountain throws water 150 feet into the air, cycling through more than 1 million gallons with every show. Elevated trains rattle past facades that have watched over the loop for a century, and out at Navy Pier, the Ferris wheel turns slowly against the lake. And when the day winds down, there's really only one way to eat here: deep dish, first served at Pizzeria Uno in 1943. Don't be shy about using a knife and fork. There's sometimes so much cheese it just isn't possible to pick up a slice, and there's no other way to eat it. Chicago built itself on that kind of confidence. Reroute a river, raise a skyline, invent your own pizza. Miami doesn't build against the water, it builds around it, towers rising straight out of Biscayne Bay like they grew there. Downtown's skyline crowds the shoreline, glass and steel stacked so tight the bay looks like it's reflecting a second city underneath. Every neighborhood here is really an island, stitched together by causeways that cross open water instead of streets. Miami Beach itself sits on a barrier island, cut off from the mainland by a lagoon of open water. You're never more than a bridge away from the ocean or the bay. Head north, and the towers get taller, the beaches wider. Whole stretches of white sand facing turquoise water that barely looks real. Slip into the intracoastal and the pace changes. Waterfront mansions, private docks, yachts idling past palm-lined banks. Expect to hear more Spanish on the street than almost anywhere else in the country. It doesn't mean the person speaking it just landed. About 2/3 of Miami-Dade speak Spanish at home, a legacy that started with Cuban arrivals in the 1960s and never slowed down. Down at the port, the scale flips again. This is officially the cruise capital of the world. A cutter cuts through the channel, wake folding out behind it in a long white seam, while ships bound for the Caribbean file past the jetty. Back on the bay, marinas pack in hundreds of masts and hulls, boats lined up tighter than parking spots. More than 8 million cruise passengers move through this port every single year, more than any other harbor on Earth. Long before there was a castle, Orlando was just a lake and a patch of donated land. In 1883, homesteaders Jacob and Fanny Summerlin gave that lake to the city, and it's been the heart of downtown ever since. Its fountain, dedicated in 1957, sits slightly off-center in the water. Engineers discovered a sinkhole exactly where it was supposed to go. Every night now, it runs a 6-minute light show set to music, a small ritual the city built for itself. A few miles out, the skyline gives way to a different kind of landmark, a wheel rising 400 feet above International Drive, the tallest observation wheel on the East Coast. One slow rotation takes 20 minutes, long enough to spot nearly everything else on this list. Nearby, a cylindrical tower topped with a giant globe has become its own kind of marker, impossible to miss along the drive. Then there's the reason most people come at all. Walt Disney World opened on October 1st, 1971, on a property spanning roughly 25,000 acres, about twice the size of Manhattan. At its center, Cinderella Castle rises 189 feet over the Magic Kingdom, still the smallest of Disney's 4 Florida parks. It's worth spending a little time on Disney's website beforehand, just to get a feel for how each park flows. You don't need to memorize it, but knowing the general layout helps. North of all that, the fantasy takes a different shape, a 200-foot volcano named Krakatoa, spilling water by day and lava by night, has anchored Universal's Volcano Bay since 2017. Same patch of Florida flatland, rebuilt over and over into something nobody expected the last time. From the water, New Orleans doesn't reveal itself right away. Lake Pontchartrain stretches flat and quiet, a sailboat or two scattered across it, the skyline barely a smudge on the horizon. That skyline sits inside a bend of the Mississippi River so pronounced that early settlers named the whole city after it, the Crescent City, curved into the river's own arc. Bienville founded this crescent in 1718, and downtown has been climbing along that same curve ever since. Closer to the river, the French Quarter, the Vieux Carré, is the original grid, laid out that same year, roughly 80 blocks squeezed between Canal Street, Rampart, and the water. It sits on the highest ground in the city, built on a natural levee, which is part of why it came through Hurricane Katrina in far better shape than the neighborhoods below it. The rooftops here sit close together, cast iron, slate, balconies stacked over streets that haven't changed shape in 3 centuries. Royal Street still carries the sound this city is known for. New Orleans is where jazz took its first breaths, somewhere around 1895. Across Canal Street, the central business district rises in a different register, glass instead of brick, and it's the stretch locals actually point families toward, close enough to walk to the quarter, far enough to sleep through the night. The real city doesn't stay inside those 80 blocks, though. It spreads out toward the live oaks and quiet green of Uptown, where the kitchens locals love are often hiding. But for a trip built entirely around the quarter, the smarter move is sleeping there too. Save the walk, stay right where the balconies and the music already are. Rising over the CBD is the Caesars Superdome, the largest fixed dome ever built, 680 feet across, standing since 1975. And every evening, the same water that shaped this city catches the light one more time. The crescent, the river, the reason any of it is here. From above, Seattle looks like layers stacked on top of each other. Water, hills, glass, and steel, all competing for the same skyline. Right in the middle of it, the Space Needle rises 605 feet into the air, built in under a year for the 1962 World's Fair. When it opened, it was the tallest building west of the Mississippi, and somehow it's still the shape everyone pictures first. Around it, downtown keeps changing. Cranes rising next to century-old brick, glass towers slotted in wherever there's room. Lake Union splits the city in two, its marinas packed tight with boats that never seem to sit still. Follow the water south and the skyline opens onto Elliott Bay, where a lone sailboat can drift right past the financial district. On the waterfront, the Seattle Great Wheel turns 175 feet above Pier 57, the only Ferris wheel in the country built out over open water. Ferries cross that same water all day long. Washington runs the largest ferry fleet in the United States, and it never really stops. If you catch a sunny day or want to brave the rain with a puffer or umbrella, Olympic Sculpture Park is worth the walk. It's Seattle's largest green space downtown, free to enter, and open every day of the year, from 30 minutes before sunrise to 30 minutes after sunset. A few blocks over, Amazon's glass spheres hold more than 40,000 plants from over 30 countries, a rainforest sealed inside downtown. At night, the highways glow beneath the towers, and the same skyline that looked like glass by day turns gold. Seattle never really settles. Water on one side, mountains on the other, built right in the middle of both. Boston never quite decided whether to be an old city or a new one, so it kept both. From above, the skyline tells that story fast. Financial district glass towers rising just blocks from triple-decker rooftops that look like they haven't changed in a century. Down at street level, a bronze medallion set into the brick sidewalk marks the Freedom Trail, a 2.5-mile red line connecting 16 historic sites from Boston Common to the Bunker Hill Monument in Charlestown. Follow that brick far enough and it leads into Beacon Hill, where narrow lanes are still lit by more than 1,000 gas lamps that have burned there since the 1820s. Cars aren't exactly welcome on these streets. Travelers on forums often point out how tight and expensive downtown parking is, and suggest booking hotels like the 1868 or Porter Square Inn across the river in Cambridge instead, then relying on taxis or public transit to reach downtown. The harbor keeps working the way it always has, boats drifting past the same brick waterfront buildings that once handled the city's shipping trade. Cross the water into Cambridge and the skyline changes character. MIT's Great Dome looks back across the Charles toward the city it left behind in 1916. The bridges over the river carry the city's rhythm back and forth between the two banks. South of downtown, Fenway Park has hosted the Red Sox since 1912, making it the oldest ballpark still active in Major League Baseball, its green monster still looming 37 feet over left field. Back Bay's brownstones give way to Copley Square, where Trinity Church's stone towers stand across from buildings built a century later. And at the center of it all is the Public Garden, America's first public botanical garden, planted in 1837 on 24 acres that used to be a tidal mudflat. In Boston, something 2 centuries old is never more than a few steps away. Monument Valley isn't really a valley at all. It's flat desert floor, broken by sandstone towers that look like they pushed straight up out of the ground. The Navajo call it Tse-Be-En-Ji-Sky, Valley of the Rocks, and the whole place sits inside the Navajo Nation, straddling the line between Utah and Arizona. Every butte here is a leftover, a piece of a plateau that used to cover the entire region, worn down over 270 million years by nothing but wind and water. The tallest of them still stands 1,000 feet above the sand. One road cuts straight through it, disappearing into the buttes on the horizon. At sunrise, the light comes in low and orange, and long shadows stretch out across the valley floor before the heat sets in. By evening, the same rock deepens to red, then burns into pure silhouette against a sky on fire. Storms move through fast out here, dark clouds pressing low over rock that doesn't so much as flinch. The View Hotel was built right into the cliffside, its color matched to the red earth, so it barely interrupts the scene. Guides born and raised on this land still lead people out at dawn. They wove in flute music and stories about growing up in a close, family-centered Navajo world, not just naming the rock formations. Come nightfall, with almost no light around for miles, the stars come out in full over the buttes. Creation here never really stopped, it just slowed down enough for people to watch. "12 bridges cross the Willamette River as it splits Portland down the middle, 2 halves that only make sense together. Behind downtown's cluster of towers, the West Hills rise green and steep, forest and skyline sharing the same frame. That double identity is exactly why locals call it Bridgetown. The Fremont Bridge carries Interstate 405 on 2 stacked decks, traffic west on top, east below, and ranks as the world's second longest tide arch bridge. Downstream, the steel bridge does even more at once. Cars and light rail up top, freight trains and pedestrians on the level below. Tilikum Crossing breaks that pattern entirely. The newest span on the river, built only for buses, streetcars, bikes, and walkers, with no cars allowed at all. At the river's edge, a sign has watched over the Burnside Bridge since 1940, first selling sugar, then a stag logo for a sportswear company, before settling on the words it wears today, Portland, Oregon. Just behind it, the pink-tinted glass of the U.S. Bancorp Tower catches light differently by the hour, 536 feet of granite shipped in from Spain. The city almost carried a different name altogether. In 1845, its two founders settled the question with a coin toss, and Boston lost by a single flip. West of the towers, Forest Park stretches for 8 miles along the hills, one of the largest urban forests in the country, pressed right against the edge of downtown. At night, the freeways along the river turn to ribbons of red and white light, the same bridges glowing from below. Season to season, hour to hour, the skyline keeps changing, but the river and the green hills around it never do. From the icy wilderness of Alaska to the tropical shores of Hawaii, and from towering canyons to vibrant national parks, the United States is a country of extraordinary contrasts. Each destination we've explored tells a story of nature's power, rich history, and landscapes unlike anywhere else on Earth. If one of these incredible places captured favorite in the comments below, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we continue exploring the world's most remarkable destinations.